So the final torment was very intense. It was saying that God does not exist. Give it up. Your faith is stupid. It's worthless. You don't deserve to exist. Kill yourself. Go away. So I started to do the only thing I had left in me was I started praying to God, or the highest essence of what I thought God was. I said, God, give me a sign. I said, I don't know if this is just pure madness in my head. I don't know if this is a religious experience. I know something much more profound is going on, but I need a sign from you. Because if you want me to continue this world, I need to know that what I'm going through is not just pure mental illness, that there's something to it, more to it. This is not just my mind playing tricks on me. I prayed as intensely as I ever did in my life, I think. So after about 2 weeks, the most intense thing, I woke up one night about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and something very profound occurred. I had a hallucination or a vision. So prior to this point, all the hallucinations I had were audio. You could say it was audio hallucinations. I wasn't actually seeing anything. Now, there might have been paranormal activity occurring in my household. I just wasn't focused on it, or I don't quite remember it. But there was a lot of stuff going on at the time. I remember it just didn't seem weird synchronicities were occurring, a lot of different things. And I've heard that synchronicities can be a good thing. I've heard synchronicities can be a bad thing.
Mm.
So it's a lot of controversy out there how to interpret all this stuff. Praying to God to give me a sign. I didn't care what the sign was. I didn't want to specify it because then I felt like I was kind of manipulating. I want to let God decide what the sign was going to be. If a Bible had shown up in the mail, my mailbox by mistake, I would have accepted that as a sign. If a priest had knocked on my door, I would have accepted that as a sign. It didn't matter to me. I just needed something definitive, or else I was done with this world. I couldn't go on like this. And so after the 2 weeks, the most intense praying, I woke up in the morning and had a hallucination, a visual hallucination. Now we can do share screen now, and I can show you and your audience what it is that I actually saw or encountered.
Yes, please. Let's.
Now, is that something I have to do at this end?
Well,
Oh,
let's see
good.
what's occurring here.
Just give me a second.
Okay, looks like it's working.
Yep, we're great on my side too.
Okay, so this is the interior of my room at the time. There's a door there, closets on the right, a little shelf, built-in shelf thing on the left there. So I woke up after 2 weeks of the most intense praying. I woke up about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with a feeling that there was a presence in my room. I mean, I could just feel this energy. It was so strong. I'm looking around. I didn't see anything. Do you see a square now
Hmm.
in
Yep.
Yeah.
this in the slideshow?
Yep.
This was the ceiling light fixture in my room. So I'm lying on my back, looking up, and the ceiling light fixture was there. And I swear there was something in my room with me. It's just a very intense presence, very strong. Looking around, I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. And then all of a sudden, I start to see this like grayish smoke-like substance start to enter the room. Can you see the slides changing okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Now, at first, I thought that there's an electrical fire occurring in my light fixture, and I was ready to run out of the room. But I realized this isn't occurring where the wires go into the light fixture. And the smoke or fog or darkish grayish silverish cloud was not coming in from the ceiling. It actually started to enter my room in a plane about 6 inches or a foot below the ceiling.
Hmm.
And then it dawned on me, oh, great, I'm having a visual hallucination. I was dealing with the diagnosis of a schizophrenic disorder, but I was aware of this, and I was aware this is probably a hallucination. So part of me is thinking, oh, great, my condition's getting worse. There's no hope. I'm never going to get out of this. The other part of me, the observer, was like, okay, let me see where my schizophrenic brain is going to take me. Let me see what it's going to show me. I want to see where this goes. I was part curious, This is a little bit of scientific experience. So more and more of this cloud-like substance is entering my room, and I'm lying on my back. I'm not really, I'm not really scared at this point. I'm more curious, but I knew this is not normal reality. Now, this substance moved the way food coloring would move through a glass of water. Like you ever drop food coloring in a glass of water, how it kind of spreads in a weird manner. That's the way it was moving. I don't know if it was sentient itself, but more and more of this cloud, grayish cloud like substance is coming in the room. It's like a fog. It's kind of grayish, darkish, silverish. Seeing more and more of it. I'm just lying on my back watching it, looking up, very curious. And all of a sudden I see like a portal start to open up in the middle of this cloud. And I realize that this cloud seems to be coming out of the portal. I could see its essence coming out around the inside circumference of this oblong portal that's forming in my room. And the portal's growing more and more. This fog-like substance is continuing to enter my room. And it was kind of an oblong oval shape. And I'm looking in, it's very dark. I really can't see anything in there. It's getting bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, I see these two snake-like serpentine movements from the bottom to top of the portal. But they're in that portal area. They're not in my room yet. They're in the portal. I was like, whoa, what is this? What is going on with my mind here? What is this? So I see these two tails move, and then they seem to converge like into one tail. So I wasn't sure if I was seeing the tail of several entities or if I was seeing one entity that had like a split tail. But I just remember it was very serpentine looking. It was grayish on the underbelly, and the sides of it were like a dark, glossy black scales, is a way of describing it. And I remember thinking, whatever this thing is, I'm glad it's in this portal and not in my room.
Yeah.
But that thought was premature. And again, I'm dealing with cognitive dissonance here. It's like, okay, is this just a visual hallucination, or is this really happening in my room? I don't know. I'm interpreting it. I wasn't sure how to interpret this. I'm on the fence. Then there was so much of the fog or cloud-like essence in the room, I couldn't see the portal anymore. It was kind of covered, but I knew the portal was still there, or the gateway, whatever you want to call it. Then all of a sudden, I see these serpentine movements in the cloud that formed in my room. And I realized this entity was coming through that portal or gateway and entering this cloud. I could see the serpentine movements in the cloud as it's moving around. I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? So I'm still lying on my back, just watching this whole thing occurring, seeing the serpentine movements kind of weaving in and out of the cloud. And then for a few moments there, I didn't see any of the serpentine movements, but I knew it was in there. The cloud was a little bit bigger. And all of a sudden, it pops out. Its head pops out. Now, I was expecting this thing to have a reptilian or snake-like head to it. After all, it's a snake. You know, my mind's playing tricks on me. It comes out with a mammalian face on it. It looked lion, dog, or monkey-like from the side. I remember it had a mane, and it had like a seam running down the side of it. I could see its whiskers. I could see like stubble. So it comes out of the cloud. It goes from left to right. And I'm curious, not overly frightened at this point. I found these images online with the last 4 or 5 years or so. And I realized this is exactly what I saw. Now, this is an entity referred to as Chinubis in ancient Egypt. So that means humanity was aware of this entity at least 4,000 years ago. The Gnostics referred to it as the Demiurge, Demiurgos, Yaldabaoth, referred to as Abraxas as well. But if you notice in this image, this is an amulet, I think from the, I think second or third century, perhaps even fourth century. But you see there's like a seam down the side, like it's a split,
Mm-hmm.
and that goes into one. And that's exactly what I saw. What was a split down the side or seam of this thing. Now, when this entity first popped out, I started kind of laughing to myself because I'm thinking, okay, my mind's creating weird animals that have a snake-like body and a lion-like head. It's like, what else is going to pop out of this cloud? Like a a frog on a duck's body or something. And here are some more amulets depicting this entity referred to as Chnubis. That's the oldest name of it. Again, the Gnostics referred to as Yaldabaoth or Abraxas. It also goes by Samiel. I think the chief archon. There's a few other names that it goes by. But even this amulet, you can see there's a little seam running down its side. Like there's a split there.
And the mane.
And the mane. And most snakes don't have a. I've never seen a snake with a seam running down the side of its body, but this entity had one.
Hmm.
So I think what it is this entity might have two tails, but they can merge together and act as one. Again, that's conjecture because I really don't know for sure. I'm just describing what it is that I saw.
Yeah, wow.
So, so then it turns and faces me head on, and now the face is very lion-like. Its left eye appeared to be kind of scratched. It might have even been blind in his left eye, like it'd been in a few cat fights.
Okay.
It, it kind of looked like a mangy cat, is a good way of describing it. But I could see it in such detail. I could see whiskers. I could see imperfections on its face. I could see stubble. I could see its snout and its eyes and its mane. Now, it didn't look it didn't look terribly scary to me at this point in time. For some reason, to me, I wasn't that frightened or scared. I was more curious where this was going.
Hmm.
So it comes at me head on. Like, okay, I knew this was not normal reality. Wasn't sure if this was just a hallucination or if these things actually materialized in my room. But I knew this was something was not right here with reality. I knew that much. This was the simulation glitching here. Then all of a sudden the face changes, the most horrible thing you could possibly think of. It became very hobgoblin-like. I remember its face was very grayish and pruned. It was wrinkled. It seemed to come at me with almost like a howling, screaming expression, like it was about to devour me or devour my soul. It looked like a combination of like maybe lizard-like and old man or old hag of decay. I just remember every cell in my body was in an intense state of fright and horror at this point. I mean, I remember every one of my hairs just stood up on end, like goosebumps. And I thought this was the end of my existence because I wasn't sure if this was just a visual hallucination that was going to go away, or if this thing was really in my room coming after me. And I remember how I felt, like just this terrible state of fright and horror. And if this was the end of my existence, I didn't want to die that way. I had nothing else to lose. So I said, I'm not going to go out this way if this thing's coming to eat me or destroy me. So what I did is I changed my state of mind. I lowered my ego. And I just projected love onto it. I figured I was interpreting this thing as being very evil. And I figured if this thing was trying to elicit the most amount of fright or terror out of me, I wasn't going to give it that satisfaction. So I just projected love onto it. I said, okay, you're coming to destroy me. I don't care. I'm going to love you. Now, I don't know if that was necessarily my own thought or if that was put in my mind from a higher thought or a higher essence. But I just felt like this is it. I'm dead. I'm going to die. And I projected love upon it. And the next thing I know, the entity seemed to disappear, vaporize, or pulverized.
Now
Just
that happens with the voices too. If the patient can project love onto the voices, they act like scalded dogs. They can't deal with it. So it's consistent with what I've experienced also.
so all of a sudden this entity is gone, and I'm like saying to myself, I think I'm still alive. I think I'm still here. The cloud was still there, although it was starting to dissipate. I knew I was still in my room because the square ceiling light fixture was serving as a datum. That was my constant. I felt like this ordeal was over. I'm still alive. What's going on here? Next thing I know, there's a whole different entity hovering overhead. Now, where the previous entity had come in and vaporized or disappeared or pulverized was kind of about 6 o'clock in my field of vision. This entity was in the upper right-hand corner, more about 1 or 2 o'clock. And this entity had like it had 3 or 4 pairs of what could be interpreted as wings. They looked like discharges of energy, almost like solar flares or solar coronas. It, the what was what I interpreted as wings was bronzes yellowish in color, but very like illuminated. And they were fluttering back and forth. Like these wings were moving, and sometimes it'd go over its face, sometimes it would move in different directions. The face is itself sheer, undescribable beauty. Now, I'm not an artist, I'm an engineer, so I drew it with kind of a white mask, porcelain face, but that's kind of what I saw. But just imagine this face with sheer beauty. I wasn't super scared at this point because I felt like this was something different, but its eyes were closed. So it's up there, hovering overhead. The wings are fluttering. Its eyes are closed. It's sheer beauty, undescribable beauty. And I felt like this was not of this reality. This is something divine or of a different realm. I was ready to get up and run out of my room just out of respect for this thing because I felt like I'm a mere mortal. I'm a human being. I shouldn't be seeing this stuff. The beauty was undescribable.
Wow.
It looked it looked androgynous, but I felt like it was of a feminine nature. But I mentioned its eyes were closed, and I realized that this I was aware of this entity before it was aware that I was there. Because I'm just like looking at it. Like I don't think it was aware of where I was, who I was, or where it was. So I'm just staring at it. And now this is stuff I've come across the internet in the last few years. And keep in mind, I had this experience back in 1991. There was no internet back then.
Right.
You could just find images. But of course, this image in the lower left-hand corner is of a what they I think they refer to as a seraph or I think seraphim
Seraphim?
for
Yep.
yeah, seraphim for plural. Could have been what they describe as a cherubim. I don't know if my pronunciation is correct. And as of course, the internet kind of intermingles them. Sometimes it gives the same name for the different views, but this is definitely what it looked like in the lower left-hand corner. It seemed to have these like floating like wings. It was just kind of a face there. And I have some other images in there what it could be interpreted as kind of looking like. But I remember it was kind of a white as porcelain, illuminated, very, very, very beautiful, intense beauty. I was in awe of how beautiful this thing was. Next I know, its eyes opened and it's looking at me in sheer beauty. We're just staring at each other. And like I didn't know what was going to happen next. I'm thinking that previous entity came in and turned into something horrible. This entity is probably going to do the same thing. It looks beautiful now, but it's going to turn into something horrible and come at me. So we're just lying there. I'm just lying there. We're staring at each other. And with both these entities, I felt like there was a connection to them, almost like they're both inside of me, but beyond me simultaneously. So I'm just lying there. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. This felt like several minutes of time where this thing's just floating, looking at me. I don't know if it was judging me. I don't know if it was trying to think of where it was. I don't quite know what was going on. But then after a few moments of it just staring at me and we're staring at each other, all of a sudden it smiles. And I remember the smile, it was a smile of grace. I could even see dimples form in its cheeks as it smiled. And the wings are still kind of fluttering back and forth. The cloud is dissipating. And with that smile, all of a sudden, I felt this projection of love come from it. It was like a wave just coming from it. But bam, it was love, euphoria, bliss, undescribable ecstasy. It's almost like it was telling me that everything's going to be okay. I don't know if it had judged my soul and found me to be worthy. I don't know if I had somehow freed it by destroying that previous entity and it was thanking me. But I remember as this entity is projecting love, bliss, ecstasy upon me, I started to have an out of body experience. Felt myself rising out of my body, like my soul was coming out of my body. I was starting to merge with this entity. We were both becoming one in a sense. It was a most beautiful and exhilarating experience I ever had in my life. And this entity starts to rise in reverse to go through the portal that had opened up earlier in that evening or that early morning. And just as I'm about to 100% merge with this entity, like we're becoming one, I don't know if that's what they refer to as a hieros gammus, but just as I'm merging with this entity and we're both about to cross into that portal gateway together as one being, I was put back to sleep. It wasn't like I fell back to sleep. Like I felt like I was deliberately put to sleep, but everything went gray. And then dark. I was out. Now I woke up the next morning, probably about, oh, I don't know, seven, somewhere between 7 to 8 a.m. I was in a state of religious shock. It's like, what just happened? What had occurred? But all that I know is here it was previously, something was telling me that God does not exist, give it up. I prayed to God for a sign. I didn't care what the sign was, and this is what occurs. This basically negated everything those negative voices were saying to me. And it proved to me that this was more than just madness. This was a profound spiritual battle that was going on here. I did tell my counselor about this because I was afraid for two reasons. One, that I was going to be put on more extreme antipsychotic drugs. I was just on a low dose of Klonopin at the time, which is basically a mood stabilizer. And I hated being on any medication. I wanted to feel like I was in control of my own faculties. And the second reason I didn't tell my counselor is I didn't want her just telling me, oh, it's just a hallucination, ignore it. Because this was giving me the groundwork, the base to start rebuilding myself. It was almost like something was trying to make me lose all my faith in God and have this experience, which basically 100% reinforced my faith in God, or however you want to define God, who knows. But this is what they refer to as crossing over from faith and into gnosis, where you've had a divine experience like this. Now, I know you're aware of Gnosticism from some of your other prior YouTube videos. I had no knowledge of Gnosticism until 2020. So I didn't know what this stuff was. I didn't come across any of these images until recent years. Now, I'm going to read something from the Nag Hammadi Library, which is the group of Gnostic scriptures or texts found about the mid 1940s. And this is from the Apocrypha of John. And they believe this was written probably about just a little prior to 185 of the Common Era. Here's a paragraph out of it. And it talks about Sophia and this entity named Yaldabaoth. So, quote, and when she saw the consequences of her desire, it changed into a form of a lion-faced serpent, and its eyes were like lightning fires which flash. She cast it away from her, outside that place, that no one of the immortal ones might see it, for she had created it in ignorance. And she surrounded it with a luminous cloud, and she placed a throne in the middle of the cloud, that no one might see it except the Holy Spirit, who is called the Mother of the Living, and she called his name Yaldabaoth. And Yaldabaoth has several etymological definitions, such as child of chaos, and there's a few other things. But here it is. I see this lion-like faced entity come out of a cloud, has a serpentine body, had no idea or knowledge of what it was. And then here this is coming out of the Nag Hammadi Library, a text written around the time of Christ. So the question is, okay, does it just means every schizophrenic sees these entities, or is there something to it? And as Jerry mentioned, that these hallucinations should be random. There's a few things that you have to know from a scientific aspect of this. Why did this cloud have to appear first? Why did a gateway or portal have to open up for this entity to enter the room? If it was supposed to be just a visual hallucination, it should have just appeared. But that's not what occurred. It had to somehow create a way to enter our realm. Now, that was a glitch in the matrix. That was a glitch in the simulation of our reality. So I don't know if this entity can create those portals or gateways, or if it knows how to navigate them, something else could be creating them. I don't know if I was facing the head archon himself, Yaldabaoth, Samael, Yaldabaoth, whatever names you want to use for him, Abraxas. I don't know if there's several entities that exist, several species of them. I don't know if I destroyed Yaldabaoth with that cosmic encounter that I had. And maybe we're seeing all this chaos in the world because of there's like a fight going on among the reigning archons for power or dominance. I don't have 100% of the answers. I just know I had this experience back in 1991, and then I'm encountering and reading this stuff and realizing there's more than meets the eye here. That like our definition of demons and archons are real. It's just how we what we call them. I mean, some people call them interdimensional beings. It just depends on your approach. But what this tells us is that humanity has a place to play in the cosmos. Our existence is significant. We're just not quite sure what it is.
Mhm.
I think if you want to defeat these archons and demons, we got to implement more of the positive aspects of our humanity into everyday life, more healthy love, more compassion, more gratitude, more forgiveness. We've got to balance our egos so that we're not all acting like narcissistic jerks all the time.
Yeah.
Well
There's
said.
and now Gnosticism, as you know, is by some it's the orthodox. It's a heretic. It's a heresy.
Yep.
But I'm going to read you something from the New Testament, which is very interesting. This is a little bit of Gnosticism having found its way into the New Testament. Now, this is in John, Book of John, 12:31, 14:30, and 16:11. But in those sections, John refers to the archon of this world, or the ruler of this world, or the prince of this world, or Satan, the ruler of this world, depending which biblical version or interpretation that you have. But here's the thing. John is not saying that the ultimate God is the ruler of this world. He's saying that there's something's different that rules this world. I mean, the way our Orthodox upbringing presents it, that God is the ultimate God, is the creator of this world, this universe, and here John is saying, even in the New Testament, no, there's a prince of this world. There's something else going on. I thought the highest God would rule this world. What's this about? Some sort of ruler or archon of this world? So there's something going on here, and I don't pretend to 100% know everything. There's various conjectures, interpretations out there, and one has to be careful with dogmatism because dogmatism may not be correct. But I think just the fact that having endured this experience, it definitely gave proof to me that our soul and psyche are real, that God does exist, however we choose to define him, her, or it. And, God is an infinite source. And it doesn't make sense that there should be a finite amount of pathways to this infinite source.
Mhm.
An infinite source should have infinite pathways to accessing it. So I don't think any one religion quite has it right, all the goodness, or has it accurately, but it's at least a way to at least start our approach or access to trying to encounter the mind of God, to put more benevolence into this world or this universe. Because
Yeah.
I mean, come on, our material world, it's vicious for some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at nature, right? Nature is beautiful, but at the same time, it's vicious. It chomps on itself for energy and sustenance. It eats itself. I mean, what a crazy way to make a world, right? Where other creatures, other sculptures have to eat other sculptures to maintain their existence. I mean, there's some madness going on.